All right. So calling this meeting to order. This is the 2 p.m. meeting, special weekend Zoom meeting of the Housing Authority of the County of Monterey Board of Commissioners. Can we please have the roll call? I'm gonna, in the interest of time and it being a special meeting on the weekend, I'm gonna skip the pledge and just move right into the roll call.
Hey, roll call. Chair Wizard.
Present.
Hey, Vice Chair Buter.
Present.
Commissioner Healy.
Present.
Commissioner Ballesteros.
Present.
Commissioner Gama.
Present.
Commissioner Miller.
Present.
And Commissioner Goodwin.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Item 3, just Gabby, is there anybody on the line?
No.
Yeah, thank you. So we would normally entertain public comment on items not agendized for this meeting. Since there's nobody on the line, since there's nobody in the Zoom with us, we'll just move right into item number 3, December 18, 2021, ad hoc committee meeting briefing. You might notice that today is December 18th and the ad hoc committee meeting met earlier this morning. Kathleen brought cookies. It was delightful. And we had the occasion to interview 3 individuals for the interim executive director position. The ad hoc committee was joined by Darlene, Ms. Sturgeon for HR professional technical perspective, and Stan, the consultant who facilitated the recruitment. We are pleased to report that there is consensus, I believe it's actually unanimous, for a preferred candidate and a backup, and then a backup to the backup. We interviewed 3 and we've ranked 3, and we all agree that we would like to present to you, the full board, a little bit of a recommendation, and we didn't want to make that decision first without actually hearing explicitly that you allow that. And we didn't want to make that decision without giving you an opportunity to ask questions. And if this board so desires, to hear from that top ranked candidate in a closed session at a meeting to yet be set before you made your final decisions. So I would pass it to Vice Chair and Ad hoc Committee Member Buter for his comments, and then after that, Commissioner and Ad hoc Committee Member Ballesteros with her comments.
Yeah, so we sort of collectively, I think, sort of formed a consensus around a candidate named Tori Gunsoli, who is the former executive director of the Houston Housing Authority, which is one of the 10 largest housing authorities in the country. I think he had a staff of 800 some odd folks. He's been in the industry for 25 years. He started the Cambridge Housing Authority, and has worked his way up through the ranks. So he's done everything from hands-on leasing to running a voucher department to doing budgets. Has a development experience. They developed 3,500 units during his 9-year tenure in Houston. So he was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, then he was at the Newark, New Jersey Housing Authority, and then Houston. So developed 3,500 units. They did 4 RAD conversions. So he's got I think a really interesting track record, and comes highly recommended by 3 pretty leading executive directors that the committee had a chance to speak with, and I think he is very technically capable, and I think he said that he could be available for up to a year, and I think he could come in, diagnose our problems, help to provide some strategic direction, and immediately bolster confidence. So that's sort of my summary. Kathleen, what are your thoughts?
So what I noticed about Tori was that he, in the interview, he didn't present himself as overconfident. I think he was just natural in how he presented himself. He presented strong leadership and skills, and also too familiarity with housing authority. He does come with 25 years of experience. And I do like how he said that he sees himself as a servant leadership. Leadership. And really enjoyed how he tackled the questions that we presented. And it's just unanimous. We all three picked him as the top candidate. So that's it.
Thanks, Kathleen. And just to give some more granular detail to the full board, by a long shot, we each ranked him first. Actually, I ranked him second by 1 point, but I mean, that's a throwaway detail. He was by far and away the leading candidate, and I'm very comfortable with him being the preferred candidate. As we had discussion, that I had ranked him in second by 1 point was more of a technical issue. When we discussed it, we collectively felt on the merits, the subjective, unquantifiable portions of that interview, that he really was the strongest candidate. So it is unanimously that we recommend to the full board that we pursue contracting him to be our interim ED throughout the period of time it takes to recruit a permanent and full-time ED. So I would ask if there are any questions from commissioners who are not present in that interview. Kevin, I see you're unmuted. Commissioner Healy, go ahead.
Yeah, John, I guess kind of big picture as it relates to some of the turmoil of late. Is Tori aware of the complexities of the interagency play and how that's contributed to some of the turnover that we've had at the leadership level, and still feeling like he's effectively going to be able to help us not only navigate that in the interim, but also choose a permanent ED who can help us remedy that situation?
Yeah, great question. One of the reasons that we all coalesced around him was that he has experience he was the executive director of the Houston Housing Authority for the better part of a decade, which had a nonprofit housing development company, and I believe in Newark as well, where he was a deputy. He also worked with a nonprofit housing development corporation. His contract in Houston was not renewed, and that is because, to hear from the leaders of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and the New York Housing Authority, and also Oakland, was it, Hans?
King County up in Seattle.
Yeah, King County, the Seattle, Washington area. The three of them said that he was more or less ousted for political reasons because he wanted to develop new opportunities in high-income regions of the city of Houston, and politically that was untenable for their city council. So for me, his moral compass is in the right place. His technical know-how is in the right place, from being able to fill out, voucher forms when he was first coming up, all the way to running one of the top 10 housing authorities in the nation. And he is familiar with the complexities that we now face, and is an expert in LIHTC and development, and would be able to unwind, or at least understand, HDC's position so as not to have that come over as sort of a grenade if the agencies were to work more closely together anytime in the future.
And the only thing I would add to that is, so they had three sort of nonprofit, I guess sort of affiliates in Houston. One was a services, resident services. Two were, for development, kind of a la HDC, and then 30 instrumentalities, probably asset level, nonprofits. And then he also had mentioned at one point the Houston Housing Authority was considering a merger with the county housing authority down there. And so they had gotten pretty far down that road. And so I think he's kind of seen that movie before too, in terms of potential consolidation, issues, the politics that go with it. And so I thought that was kind of compelling as well.
And a final fine point on that is that his recommendation to the Housing Authority for the city of Houston was don't consolidate. It was not going to be the right choice. And so it wasn't just managing a program, providing that strategic guidance to say like, hey, this is a thing we can do. We're technically competent, but it's not my recommendation. And all the parties ended up walking away and deciding it was in the best interest not to consolidate. So not just sort of executing on the board's authority, but really providing that higher level leadership and guidance, and ultimately letting the board drive, but being able to speak up and say this isn't right, or maybe we should pause.
Very good. I appreciate it.
Sure. Paul, before we lose you, if we haven't yet, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you so much, John. I was just going to ask if I could do that. So I totally support your guys' recommendation. He sounds like a person that has a lot of experience kind of, dealing with, I'm sure, probably a lot more complex issues than we're currently facing that's kind of derailing us. And I like the fact that he's got the development experience, because I think that brings a whole different, unique perspective to it and understanding. So I fully support the ad hoc committee's recommendation. And just real quick, when would he be able to start if that's the direction we go, John?
Our goal was to be able to get somebody in before year's end, but just with the mechanics of kind of that back and forth on negotiating with him, since we haven't begun that pending our conversation now, it may end up being maybe the first week of January. But his goal, his offer in the committee was that he would spend 2 weeks on site immediately upon the execution of the contract. The first 2 weeks of that would be on site, and then he would work. His vision was 3 days a week at the authority, but he could ramp that up if things changed. If we needed him, we asked him to come in more. If he had the lead time, he could do that.
Excellent. Yeah, it sounds
He's hit the spot.
Yeah, maybe he's just going around a rock or something, and it'll pick up.
just to kind of go over that bridge until we can get to a new ED. So those are just
Right.
my thoughts on.
Yeah, and just to finish that up, Paul, he said that he could stay up to a year if that's what we needed, where the others were shorter periods of time. So we have a little bit of breathing room with him.
Yeah, I heard you say that, and I think that well, we know the difficulties of actually finding someone, and I think that having the ability to keep him longer if need be will not kind of make us pick someone just for the purpose of picking someone because we need someone. I think that'll give us a lot more negotiating and ability to seek out the exact person that we need.
Thank you, Paul. Commissioner Goodwin, Commissioner Gama, any thoughts?
I would agree totally with Commissioner Miller. His comments were right on, and I think it's good that we have a year to work on getting a permanent position installed, and that we're not jumping the gun or anything like that for the sake of having an ED. But I trust you guys, and I trust your judgment, and it sounds like it's going to be a win-win situation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Gama.
The same, I trust your guys' judgment. That's why you were chosen to be on this committee, in the ad hoc committee. And yeah, everybody's already asked the questions that I was thinking about, and I like how he has a year, because we don't know how long it's going to take us to find a permanent executive director. So yeah, thank you guys for taking this on.
Of course, it really was a privilege to work on behalf of the commission and hurry to try to find a solution we could all get behind. So another question that's come up is the commission comfortable, given the speed at which we've been able to do this, is the commission comfortable asking Stan, the consultant, the headhunter, to help us find a CFO, a new finance director? We thought that there might be some synergy there, that his network could include that kind of recruitment. Clearly he can perform. Whether this person works out or not is not his problem. He was supposed to find us a person, and that is what he did. So, I think that he might be able to find us a CFO, and we wanted to kind of get the board's consent, agreement that that was something they wanted to pursue, or should we look elsewhere for a different consultant? And the floor is open for anybody's comments.
I'm getting ready to probably fall off here. So if it's okay, I'll go real quick. I would think that we use him. I mean, it appears that he has good connections to get people, and, hopefully they can push us in the right direction to find a person that could come in and fill that role. Because, that's also another vital role that we're having to deal with. My recommendation would be go ahead and use them.
Thank you, Paul.
I would concur with Commissioner Miller and the continued utilization of Stan as the resource for the CFO.
I agree.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Gama, just want to make sure you're comfortable.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, well, we'll do that. I think Hans, you have his number. You can give him a ring about, extending, or, actually, you know what? Let me take a step back. Ms. Sturgeon, I see you grimacing. Would you help us delineate a second and separate contract with him to
Yes.
engage him on those activities?
Because this will be, and I just want to clarify, this will be for a permanent recruitment. As to right now, we're doing an interim for the executive director. We're going to be looking for a permanent placement. Okay.
Yes.
So yes, it is better to do a separate engagement.
Okay, great. So we'll work on that. You'll likely see that at the next regularly scheduled board meeting to execute that. Be prepared on Tuesday. I know not everybody is going to be able to make it. Even if you call in by phone and kind of half listen, it would be good if you could. I understand it's in the daytime. I understand people have jobs, myself included. And I appreciate that this is not the most convenient thing. But for those who can participate, we welcome you to. Please do if you're able. And there's also going to be a special meeting of HDC and HDC only after the joint special meeting where we'll be discussing the recommendation from the Board of Supervisors, whatever that may be, and thinking amongst ourselves what it is that we have before us and how we might get there. And of course, I'm clear that I'm the chair of HACM and that Commissioner Ballesteros is the chair of HDC. We understand our separate roles, and just because we're in this meeting now, I'm just prefacing it for everybody.
And I would just say, I just wanted to swing back on today's process from an HR standpoint. I just wanted to let everybody know that we use the same panel, the same ad hoc committee, and the recruiter stand were all part of the panel. So we use the same panel for every person in the interview. We use the same standardized questions, and the question and answers were scored independently by each member of the panel. And then those scores were disclosed, and then the discussion happened, and the scoring was done on the up and up. There was no influence, and no one changed their score even after the discussions. So from an HR perspective, it was very clean and very by the book.
Okay, so we've lost Commissioner Miller, but we're already at the end of business unless there's anything, Ms. Sturgeon, you need to share with us, or okay.
Chair,
comments? Yes, please.
Real quick question, just on the mechanics, relative to the meeting Tuesday and the correspondence that we received, is in terms of the appointment of Tori or the moving forward with that process, is that relative to the correspondence that we received from County Council, is that going to stand in conflict with some of the information that was in that correspondence, if you're following me?
I am, and it's my understanding that they were not excited about the prospect of us making changes to the organizing documents so much as the organizational structure. I think it's appropriate that an independent government agency be able to appoint an executive, especially when we're in this precarious position with having someone very short-term to kind of bridge us to the longer short-term person. But certainly I'm not asking anybody to make decisions on the structure of the organization with regard to departments and divisions before we've had that conversation with the supervisors.
So I guess, and then my follow-up question would be the duration of what we're potentially as a board going to enter into with Tory. I know I had heard his availability of up to a year, but is the current term proposal shorter than that duration, and give us a little bit of wiggle room relative to the correspondence, if you follow?
Yeah, so the great question, and the contract should state that the validity period is for a year, but that he is at will and he bills for hours worked, and that we have a at will termination in the interest of whatever it is we want to do. Either party can walk away at any time.
Turn it off, turn it on. Okay, great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and just for, so because we are recording, I just want to make sure that there's very clear direction, that there's no questions from the public or anybody else as to what the direction was from the board. I want to make sure that everybody, that a majority of commissioners wish to direct staff to work out, negotiate with this preferred candidate. The 4 points of the contract, whatever they may be, and that we would vote on the contract at another time, but that we want staff to go negotiate it so they can present it to us. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same sheet of music there, and that no one's thinking that there's an interim step between now and then. I mean, the ad hoc committee, that's our position, that we do that, not use more time, but we are not a majority, and we want to make sure that a majority feels comfortable with that.
I think echoing Commissioner Goodwin and Gama and Miller's comments, I certainly stand in support of the recommendation of the ad hoc committee and support the idea of moving forward.
Great. And I just got a text message from Commissioner Miller apologizing for losing connection, and I'll make sure that he's informed that was sort of, firmed up between the time that he left and now. Any questions?
Do we need to make a motion for the action?
This is agendized as discussion, so
Okay.
let's leave it as direction, and then when you come back with whatever it is that you two work out, if you believe that it's fair and in the best interest, maybe it's time then to agendize it for action, and we can vote on what you present. And then maybe that vote is to go back with a counter offer instead, but at least would be able to vote.
Okay. Perfect.
All right. Last questions, thoughts, comments, or concerns before we go. Right now it's 25 minutes, but we can keep it to 30. Go ahead, Commissioner Ballesteros.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say real quick, I did have a Zoom meeting with Supervisor Alejo, and I'm gonna make it brief. I did mention to him regarding that the ad hoc was meeting today to interview candidates, but it was only for interim executive director, because that was a recommendation or suggestion from HUD to have a body or a person in that place, so that way the finances or the funds funded through HUD can go through the process through the agency. And he was okay with it. I mean, he didn't really specify anything when I mentioned that to him yesterday. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Ballesteros. Anything from the rest of the commission? All right. Well, thank you so much.
I would just like to say, oh, sorry. Thank you for everything, you guys. Thank you. Yeah, thank you for being in the committee and doing all this for us and bringing all the information.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot of work. It is a lot of time, but we understand that this is if we didn't do this as a commission, we could find ourselves in a really bad way, and ultimately the people most affected are our residents. And it just so happens that I got suckered into being the chair, and Vice Chair Buder got suckered into being the vice chair. And I say that totally in jest. And we're grateful for the rest of the commission's trust and faith, and that, you know, we're together, we're going to find our way out of this. And I think we're making great progress, and we're doing everything as quickly and professionally as can be done. So I want to thank all of you for giving us the trust to execute on those things that we need to do. Okay, well, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And with there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.